you explain to us what the situation is with the taxi drivers? Because I got to say, it sounds very similar to me as to what happened in 2008 financial crisis and the really horrible plan that was started by the Obama administration called HAMP, which basically said we're going to incentivize the banks and hope that they do the right thing. And of course they didn't.
It's exactly it. And, you know, what's happening with yellow cab drivers today in New York City is thousands of them are stuck in very high loans. The medallion, which is a number you see on top of the cab, it's a permit from the city of New York that allows you to use a yellow cab exclusively for street hail rights across the city. Well, you know, the permits are issued by the city. The city, through the years from 2002 to 2014, made $850,000 from issuing these permits. Their investigations have found that the city of New York inflated the value of the medallion. They engaged in, you know, direct mailings and phone calls and advertising to get mostly immigrant drivers to invest in the medallion. The city made its millions. Many of the banks that were no longer allowed to loan in the housing market after 2008 were rolled out a red carpet to then loan to immigrant drivers. And they made millions from the interest alone. Now that the value of the medallion has crashed from 1 million at one point to like less than 100,000 today, on average, our members are left with the debt of $550,000.
This is nuts. So I just want to be clear here. The city made how many millions of?
In a 12-year period, $850 million.
$850 million. And they did this by encouraging people to sign up to buy these medallions. And the bankers came in with a total disregard as to whether this was a good loan. And I want to be clear. There's a reason why they call bank loan officers as opposed to, you know, loan clerks. It's because they have a fiduciary duty to make sure that the loans that they are offering are able to be paid back by the taxi drivers. And so this seems like a, you know, just a, this seems just like the real estate sort of a quasi fraud on some level. You're pushing these ideas that that folks are going to be able to make this money back, and then they get stuck with these medallions that are essentially underwater. And so what is the city was now guaranteeing some of these loans for the banks? Is that what it was, or what was going on with that dynamic?
So the city has come out with a grant program. I mean, look, we've had this massive crisis. There have been 9 driver suicides. At one point, there were 900 bankruptcies. People have had liens on their homes, on their bank accounts. Owner drivers, as we call them, are among the most older drivers in the industry. This is also a senior issue. People have lost their retirement that they were banking on, when the value of the medallion crashed. And the only response the city has had is a grant program where they will grant $20,000 to the bank to use as an incentive to write down the loan. And here's the catch. The more they write down the principal, the more they're allowed to charge you on the monthly payment. So you basically get punished if you get any level of debt relief. I mean, it's insane, and it's so irresponsible. There's 6,000 families that are facing utter financial ruin. And the thing here is, not only were the regulators asleep, 7 government agencies had internal reports which found that the medallion value was being inflated, but they still allowed the auctions, the sales to happen. But it's also important to note the government here played the role of a speculator. They, publicized the rates to be higher than they knew it to be. Many of those same officials then allowed an Uber and Lyft to essentially provide the same service, but completely unregulated. And then many of those individuals went straight to work for Uber and Lyft. So their careers have taken off. The city's made its billions. The banks have made their money, but hardworking cab drivers who've given all their life, their adult life to this city, are facing ruin, and all the city wants to give them. The city of New York received $6 billion in COVID assistance. That's $2 billion above the city's deficit. The only thing they could put together is the $65 million grant program. The money goes to the banks directly, and there's no real relief in return. So we've been calling for a guarantee, because right now the loans are guaranteed by the individual. We want to remove that, because otherwise our members are facing, the loss of their homes, and, their wages could be garnished 10% for the rest of their working life. Yep. So if there's a guarantee, you remove that risk and you incentivize the banks to lower the principal and the monthly mortgage. Okay, and the guarantee would be provided by the city, and that's right. And if the taxi, if the cab driver, was unable to pay, the city would get the medallion back. Actually, the bank would get the medallion back, and they'd be able to resell it. If they don't recoup the total balance, then only then the city has a financial duty. Okay. Now, the thing here is, this is a strategy. It's actually very low cost. Our city controller, the chief financial officer, vetted our proposal and found it to be fiscally sound. This is a low cost and low risk proposal, that the city could do for essentially like less than a couple $1 million a year for a city with the budget of $96 billion. It's already made $850 million from the drivers. This is a fraction of a cost for the city that is directly responsible for this human crisis. So now, my understanding is that that some of the cab drivers are now basically camping out in front of City Hall. Is that what's happening? What actions should we be aware of that are taking place, and what can our listeners do to help support these folks? Well, we've been camped outside City Hall 24/7. You can come and join us. We're right on Broadway in front of City Hall. Many of our members have also been now preparing themselves for a possible hunger strike. I mean, this is the last few months of this current mayor. We have an election coming up in November, but we don't have time to wait. Like, we're trying to stop foreclosures and bankruptcies. If the city's plan goes forward within months, you're going to see, several thousand driver families that, would have lost absolutely everything. And is there a website that people can get more information? Yes, we are at nytwa.org. nytwa.org. Bhairavi Desai, Executive Director of the New York Taxi Worker Alliance. Thanks so much for coming on and telling us about this. Thank you so much. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.